What happens when two dudes, one a retired Navy SEAL commander in Colorado Springs, and the other a hippie meditation teacher in New York City, get together to discuss living mindfully? That's a great question, because we don't know what will happen either. Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness with co-hosts John McCaskill and Will Schneider. Each week, we take an authentic dive into how mindfulness continually impacts our lives, deepens our relationships, and allows us to be emotionally alive. Now, on to the show.
Hey, today we're going to speak about something called Masculinity Contest Culture. Here's a little taste of what we're going to dive into. This is a quote from an article that I'll reference a little bit later. At work, this pressure to prove I have what it takes shifts the focus from accomplishing the organization's mission to proving one's masculinity. The result? Endless, quote, mine's bigger than yours contests, such as taking on and bragging about heavy workloads or long hours, cutting corners to out-earn others, or taking unreasonable risks, either physically in the blue-collar jobs or in decision-making, like rogue traders or financiers. The competition breeds unspoken anxiety because, admittingly, anxiety is seen as weak, and defensiveness, blaming subordinates, for example, for any of your failures, undermining cooperation, psychological safety, trust in coworkers, and the ability to admit uncertainty or mistakes. Together, this creates miserable, counterproductive work environments that increase stress, burnout, and turnover. The source of this quote is from a Harvard Business Review article entitled How Masculinity Contests Undermine Organizations and What to Do About It, by three authors, Jennifer, what's that, John? Jennifer Bertle, Peter Glick, and Marianne Cooper. We have the link here. We'll drop it in. So our conversation may raise some questions, or more questions than answers at this point. So we anticipate this will be our first of a few conversations on this topic, and we can also shift this over to our new sub-series that we're calling Masculinity 2.0. Before we go any deeper, we'd like to welcome you to Men Talking Mindfulness, where each episode we do our best to demystify mindfulness and make it meaningful to you. I'm Will Schneider, coming to you from the Big Apple, New York City, and your co-host and my co-host and friend and brother from another mother, Jon McCaskill, is over there in Colorado Springs. What's up, John?
Hey, brother. How are you? Man, I'm feeling great, and I'm excited to get in this topic. It really is so important, and so that the title of the show, Men Talking Mindfulness, right? And you may think, okay, so what does the masculine contest culture have to do with mindfulness? Well, not everything that we cover is directly related, but it is tied to, and we'll get into that in the conversation. But having compassion for your fellow human being, having some type of knowledge of who you are, and not feeling like you have to compete. We're going to get into a lot of that, but it's tied into mindfulness and how mindfulness may be able to help to reduce that desire to compete needlessly. Now, I'm not against competing when it serves a purpose, but just needlessly competing for the sake of competing, or to demean others, or to make others feel less than. That's what we're here to talk about. And that's why it's kind of tied to masculine toxicity, and how mindfulness can help with that. So I think it's an important topic. Very excited to get into that. That said, we got to kick it off with an opening practice. If you've never listened to the show, watched the show before, the way we do things here, Will and I kind of bookend the show, the meat and potatoes of the show, with a practice at the beginning and a practice at the end. And that serves multiple purposes. One, it gets you as our audience, our listeners, our viewers practicing. It gets you calm and focused on what it is we're talking about. And then three, it gets us calm and focused on what it is we're here to talk about, so that we can be better hosts. And we're completely transparent about that because, hey, we're not buying into this toxic masculine contest culture, because we are human beings and we know that you see us as that. So Wow, I think I rambled on way longer than I'd anticipated, but here we go. Let's do a grounded practice, brother.
I love it, Jon. Bring it, brother. I'm loving it
All
already.
right.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead and get into a position that is both comfortable and safe for you, whatever that may look like. If closing your eyes is safe and comfortable, I invite you to do that. Otherwise, obviously, keep your eyes open. If you're driving, if you're doing anything where closing your eyes is dangerous, please keep your eyes open. And let's just bring your attention to your breath, to the here and the now. By focusing on your breath, that tunes out some of the noise, be they physical sensations or emotional sensations, thoughts, anxiety, stress, depression that may be in your life. Focusing on the breath helps to tune some of that out, even if just for a short period. Helps to tune it out for your body, your mind, and your nervous system. So focus on the physical sensations of the breath, of your breathing. It is your breath. Focus on how the air feels as it enters your body and how it feels as you exhale. Notice what the air is doing as you inhale, expanding your lungs, expanding your chest and your belly, and what is happening to your body as you exhale. Your lungs are getting smaller. Your chest and belly are contracting. Feel that. Notice that. Be aware of it. And if you've noticed that your mind has started to wander off, that's okay. Your mind is meant to think thoughts. It's completely natural. Just bring it back. Bring it back to your breath, that anchor. Just like a ship tries to float off from an anchor, your mind starts to float off during a meditation, but you can bring it back with that anchor, the anchor being your breath in this instance. And let's close with 3 deep cleansing breaths together. Begin by breathing out as much air as you can, bringing your navel to your spine. Breathing in deep in through your nose. Holding at the top and relax, letting it go. Nice and slow, focusing again on the physical sensations of the out breath, the exhalation. Holding at the bottom. Deep breath in. Hold at the top. And relax, letting it go. One last one together. Deep breath in through your nose if you're able. Filling those lungs all the way. Holding at the top. And relax. Now when you're ready, start to bring some movement back into your body. Move your head around, shoulders, bring some micro movements as we discussed on the Quench episode on how to stay hydrated. Bring those into your body. Stay hydrated, stay young, stay really just feeling great. So here we are in Men Talking Mindfulness, and we are here to talk about masculinity contest culture. Will, how do you want to kick this off, man? It's been a while since it's been just you and me.
Well, how about I tell a story first?
Yeah, let's do it.
An experience of exactly this. So I used to work in a pharmaceutical company before I became the hippie in New York City. I was transitioning out. Like I was like taking a month of working part-time and with the company, but also taking this 1 month. It was actually the month of May in 2003, where I was like kind of working my way into New York but also leaving this job. And at the time that I was working at this company, we were doing some, we worked really hard. I was at the company for several years. I was working actually in a very good team, like it's a very diverse team. It was all men, but very, very ethnically diverse team. And I was working in a division called biopharmaceutical development. I was growing bacteria that had some sort of drug in them, and it was like this whole process. It took us years to get to this process, and so we had a lot of hands in the pot. There was definitely the people that had higher levels of education, masters or PhDs, were definitely more of the upper echelon in this organization. I just had like my bachelor's, and I was only working there a few years. Not only, I was a very integral part of this. But there is this, we're doing this reaction overnight, because sometimes they had to run for several hours. And so it wasn't just like a 9 to 5 thing. It was like several hours. And then after like a 12, 18-hour fermentation, we'd have to harvest it and push it down the kind of the assembly line, if you will. And there was this one evening that something went wrong. I wasn't there this particular evening, but I heard about it the next day or the day after, where we're running this reaction, and someone made a choice which really messed with this particular reaction, in which we had to dump like 2 days of work, essentially, is what we'd have to do, and then start over again. Right. So right there, not unwillingness to admit mistakes and take responsibility for your mistakes. So what they tried to do is they tried to fix it with this particular reaction with a very high acidic acid. Like, I don't know if you know concentrations in acid, but it was like normal concentration. So it's a very, very, very high concentration. So they were trying to reduce the pH of this particular reaction in order for the culture to continue to thrive and continue to grow. And the acid that they put in, it was such a high concentration. In order to pump it into the reactor, it started to actually eat the tubing before it went into the reactor, which caused toxic fumes and all this other stuff like that happened. And it was overnight. So it was only like a small group of people that were there doing this. It was like I think it was like 3 people that were involved in this process. And nobody heard about it. So I heard about it from the guy that I knew that was there that night, that I worked with on this team. And they kind of pushed it under the rug, right? One of the other persons that was actually involved in this was a safety officer, right? About 2 or 3 weeks after this whole thing went down, we had a big company meeting to talk about, just to talk about the company. And they always have like the safety officer step up and talk about, things that went wrong and potentially how to improve them. And this was not mentioned at all, where it was like, it could have been considered like it should have been considered very harmful. We could have learned a lot from that process. But because of what we're talking about here, and what will define what masculinity, from this article, will define, the criteria, or define what the masculinity, like there's 4 main elements of what it is, and was literally a masculinity contest culture, right? Was actually part of exactly what I just spoke of, and it was all men that were involved in this whole thing, which I thought was very interesting. So, let's just try to read what they are.
Well,
Here's
let's unpack that story a little bit, right?
Please, yeah.
So what kind of started this conversation was that HBR article, and the point of the article was what this masculinity contest culture does to organizations, and how it undermines what organizations are typically trying to do. They're typically trying to, 1, increase their bottom line, 2, increase innovation, 3, ideally have a culture of acceptance and some type of psychological safety, and then physical, literal safety. You want to have a workspace that is safe. And it sounds like that particular incident undermined all of that. They could have learned. They could have learned from the mistake. They could have said, "Hey, you know what? We screwed up. What can we learn from that?" So they could have gotten better and innovated from it. So boom, that's undermined because they didn't address it. 2, psychological safety. Yourself and others were wondering, what the fuck, right? Hey, some major thing went down and we're not addressing it, and nobody here feels comfortable to bring it up. So you're not in a psychologically safe environment. Uh,
Yep.
there's so many reasons that is like a prime example of the dangers of this masculine contest culture in an organization. I mean, it's dangerous in many ways. We talked about right before the show how this, what we see as masculine contest culture in organizations is a microcosm of what we see in the world. I mean, what we
Right.
see happening overseas right now, what we see happening sometimes within our own country, within our own borders. And I'm not going to get hyper political on it, but
I'm with
it
you.
does cause a lot of problems from the micro scale. Maybe it's in sports as a young man or a young masculine type, all the way up to literal wars being started over this stuff. So
Right.
yeah, let's now take that, define it, and talk more about it, what
Yeah.
it is.
Well, here we go. So this is from that article, and it says there's 4 masculine norms which together define masculinity contest culture. And these emerged as highly correlated with each other and with organizations that are dysfunctional. And just to give a little background here in this article, they spoke to thousands of different people in various different companies and then came up with these 4 things. It's not like they just made them up, right? They actually questioned the workforce. And these are the 4 norms that came up that define masculinity contest culture. Number 1, show no weakness. It goes on to say here, a workplace that demands swaggering confidence, never admit doubt or mistakes, and suppressing any tender or vulnerable emotions. And they say in here, quote, no sissy stuff. Number 2, strength and stamina. A workplace that prizes strong or athletic people, even in a white-collar work, or those who show off their endurance, by, for example, working extreme long hours. Number 3, put work first. A workplace where nothing outside the organization, for example, family, can interfere with work, where taking a break or a leave represents an impermissible lack of commitment. And number 4, dog eat dog, a workplace filled with ruthless competition where winners, typically the most masculine, focus on defeating losers, the less masculine, and no one is, and this is really key, and no one is trusted. Those are the 4 norms. And I read them, I'm like, oh my God, like why would anyone would want to work in a place like this? But what's really sad is this is the way in America, a lot of workplaces are. Like they literally, they keep playing this game of masculinity contest culture with these 4 norms and expressions really of how people are doing work.
Right. And in that article, they referenced the Game of Thrones environment, basically
Right.
where people try to one up one another and really ultimately sabotage their colleagues. So now they're not seen as colleagues, they're seen as competition. And it comes back to
Right.
our episode on the scarcity versus abundance mindset. But quite often,
Okay, there you go.
Organizations are set up that way. Like you have peer reviews, you have some type of ratings. In the military, at least in the Navy, we had this system called fit reps, so fitness reports. And I know the other branches have their own similar examples of this, but basically it's a rating system. You write, hey, what have you done over the last year to serve both the organization and the country? And then you're racked and stacked against your fellow people in that same rank that wear the same insignia. So like for me, example, I'm a SEAL. When I got out, I was a commander. I was ranked against other SEAL commanders in my organization. So like it would say number 1 of 5 SEAL commanders. It would literally say that on my fitness review. So when I'm walking around the hall and I see my fellow SEAL commanders that I'm brothers with, there's still a kind of a desire to compete against them. And if I wasn't number 1, then I would be thinking, what did that other person do to get number 1? And what do I need to do differently over this next year to be number 1 next time? Because those those ultimately go into whether you get selected to command an element, whether you get selected to move up in rank, whether you get selected for a specific position as far as like location. I mean, a lot goes into it. So there is, unfortunately, that dog eat dog in the military. And then as far as the, outworking one another, there was this saying that we had in the military when people wanted to take, a break to spend time with their family. If they wanted to take leave and spend time with their family, there was the saying, a family. Well, the military didn't issue you a family. The military is only concerned about what we issued you, and we didn't issue you a family in your sea bag. And that's said tongue in cheek,
Wow.
but it's also, there's truth to it, to the point where in the military, again, at least in the Navy, we had every year you accumulate 30 days of leave, and you can accumulate as much as 60 days, and then you start to lose it. So it's called use or lose. They're like, hey, if you don't use your leave, then you're going to lose it. And people prided themselves on how much leave they stacked up and how much leave they lost. Like, I remember guys saying, well, I had 92 days on the books last year, but I lost because they accumulated more than 60. They lost 32 or whatever. They lost some exam, and they prided themselves on that. So that, that's the military side of things. And I think that it's not just the military, but that's my experience, right? So yeah, I'd love to talk more about this and unpack it a little bit more, and how the dog and the rankings hurt everyone.
Yeah. Again, show no weakness, strength and stamina, put work first, dog eat dog. And I got to say, Jon, I think in order to bring forth, and tell me if I'm wrong, the best soldiers possible, this competition is important in some ways, right? Because I think it really drives you to dig deeper, to be more of a badass, if you will, right? So there is I'm not saying competition at all is negative. I mean, I think it definitely there is, I've heard, I forget the book, but even there's when we try that the sperm are competing to fertilize the one egg. Right. You know what I mean? Right. That's at our most basic level. There is some competition that is hardwired into our humanity. And it's interesting that it's the sperm from masculine, right? That is in competition, it gets with one egg sitting there.
It gets started so early. I said it gets started so early.
It does. So I think there's exactly. And I think there is a balance here, because I think there is a place for healthy competition in the workplace, for sure. Right. But I think it also comes down to how we speak of it, how we reward it,
what the goal is, right?
What the goal is, right?
Is the goal, personal progress, or is the goal progress for the entire organization, right? Like, hey, setting the values and expectations, the vision, the mission of the organization, and is your competition in line with those values, in line with that mission, in line with that vision? And if it's not, if it's strictly to move yourself up the ladder, then there's something wrong. If what you're doing is going to undermine the values, mission, and vision of an organization, you're doing something wrong. I definitely agree that there is time and place for competition, and then you have to evaluate how you're doing it as well.
Well, let me ask you, Jon, because, from what I know, about from being with you, I think Stealing Fire really woke me up. The book by Kotler and Wheeler really helped me open my eyes to, SEAL teams. And I think that's a real key word, teams. So how, if you would, do they leverage or actually merge, if you will, the competition within the group? I'm one of 5 SEALs on my whatever physical ranking, right? And then work to be like, hey, we're a team, we're a brotherhood. Because I mean, every time that you talk about your SEALs, I love when you say they're my brothers, because that means you got their back, and you're really looking out for one another. And because in serious combat missions, you need that more than anything else. And the competition, I'd imagine, goes to the side in those very heightened circumstances. So what is like, is there training involved in order to solidify more of this brotherhood and this harmony as a team, and but also the competition there as well, if you want to kind of dive into that a little bit, I think
I
would be
mean,
enlightening.
like we said just before, is that competition can be good, and it can even bond you, right? Like we'll go out to the shooting range and we'll have a shooting competition. Like you have to move from one barrier to the next, do like a combat roll, crawl through a tunnel, whatever, and shoot these different targets, and you time yourself, or you are timed. And at the end of the day, everybody's time is thrown up on the board. Everybody's number of targets that they hit is thrown up on the board, and there's bragging, and there's high-fiving, and then there's some fun, like, oh man, Jon, you sucked on that one, and it's I think there is, I got to be honest, I think there's some value in that. Even the fun poking, right? But doing it in a lighthearted way is one thing. Doing it in a, Jon, you fucking sucked on that one, that's
undermining, right?
That's different, right? Really undermining,
right.
Demeaning, making feel less than. There's a difference there, and there's a fine line. And as a leader in the SEAL teams, you have to watch that.
Yeah.
Like you have to allow for some of it, because it does make everyone better if we're competing. And if we're better as individuals, we're going to be better as a team, and ultimately we're going to be better on the battlefield together, because that's where the true enemy is. But I got to come back to this, because it popped into my head as you were talking last time. The ironic part of all this, Will, is that I would never have come to meditation and mindfulness if it weren't for competition. Wow. I think I've told this story
explain
before.
That. Yeah, unpack that.
I've told this story before, but for those of you who don't know, I struggled with my own stress and anxiety after a particular operation in the SEAL teams, and it caused me a lot of survivor guilt. And I went to go see a counselor, and he recommended mindfulness and meditation to me, and I laughed at him because I thought he was a weirdo, and I thought meditation and mindfulness was for a bunch of weirdos. And then he said, well, what if I could give you something that would give you an edge over your enemy or over your buddy next to you? Because in a special operations world, that's what you're looking for, is an edge. You're looking to outperform your enemy, and that enemy could be the enemy on the battlefield, but it could literally be your buddy right next to you. And when he said that, I was sold. I was like, yeah, give me whatever that is. And it just so happened to be meditation and mindfulness that could improve your performance.
So and give you a competitive edge.
Yeah, it gave me the competitive edge. So I actually started mindfulness and meditation for the performance enhancing aspects of it. And I know that's shallow. I fully know that now. But looking back on it, it's ironic. I hadn't even thought about it until you started talking, that I would not have started meditation and mindfulness if it weren't for the performance enhancing aspects, the competitive edge that it would have given me. But ultimately, it also gave me compassion and wherewithal and an idea of who I am. And it helped in so many other ways. The competitive edge was a minuscule piece of it. But I had to bring that up. I thought it was ironic that I wouldn't be here speaking to you today about mindfulness if it weren't for my own desire to compete, to be better.
Right. Well, I think there's that healthy competition. Here's an example, and then I know it's like I feel like we're going off on a little, not a tangent, but like here's an example, Jon, that we together are living right now, and we can promote this as well. Is our Whoop team, our Men Talking Mindfulness Whoop team. Like I am making all sorts of changes in my life, so I can be healthier, right? Yes. But what's driving me to be healthier is to see the group, right? Because I think we have 11 or 12 members in our team, right? Men and women are involved in this.
So let's just explain
anybody
real quick
can join on.
what Whoop is.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, for the audience.
It's right there. That's what Whoop is, right there, Jon.
Literally,
that's
Whoop. We're both wearing it on our wrist. It's a wearable, tracking our biometrics. It tracks our SpO2. It tracks our heart rate. It tracks our heart rate variability. There it is. So Will's got it up on his phone, and we have it tracks all that, but then it also racks and stacks all those things against a group. So like literally it tracks how much sleep you get, and then it racks and stacks your sleep against the rest of the people in the group. And I'm right there with you,
Right.
Will. I wake up in the morning and I check that thing. I'm like, how did my sleep rack up against everyone else's sleep?
Right,
Hey,
right.
did I get enough strain through the day? So it measures your strain, whether or not you worked out, whether you got your heart rate up enough times through the day, and it racks and stacks that. And I'm
Right,
like,
right.
okay, I've got to get on the treadmill this morning for no other reason. So it's embarrassing, but it's also, hey, it's a motivator. It comes back to our episode
Exactly. I'm
on
so inspired
accountability.
by it.
Yeah,
Yep, yep.
it's a digital accountability method. And I get on the treadmill, or I get on the bike, or I go out and run, so that I'm not dead last on that stack. So this comes back to the healthy competition, right? Is it
Right, right,
healthy? Yeah. Now, if we obsess about it, or if we get
right.
on there, if we get on the group, because there's a chat function as well, if we get on there and we start dogging one another in a mean, demeaning way, then that's where
Yeah,
the toxic masculinity contest culture is
yeah.
obviously undermining
Right.
the point of the group. The point of the group is to support one another, and it's great. We all get on there, we're like, hey, great job, good to see you guys got some sleep, good to see you guys got some workouts, great work, that kind of thing. It's supportive. It's not
Right.
competitive in a negative way. So I think that's the
Yeah.
difference.
Well, also, if you're really obsessing, I mean, because it tracks. We're plugging the shit out of the Whoop right now.
Yeah, we
We got to
are.
bring them on the show, which is perfectly fine. It's a great. I mean, I can't believe how incredibly inspired. I literally, John, I did not smoke weed last night to go to bed, so I can literally elevate my HRV,
HRV.
which is
Yeah.
so input rate, heart rate variability. And I woke up, my heart HRV was up. I'm going to do it again
You and I
tonight.
had almost the exact
Ele-
same metrics last night, by the way.
yeah, right. But also those metrics, right? They're measuring three things. So if you want to be obsessing, like crushing your competition on the strain, which could be cycling, biking, swimming, walking, hiking, whatever it is, right? Strain activities, stuff that is really upping your heart rate and really activating the body. But also parts of this, other two are sleep. So you have to get good sleep. So if you're obsessive and want to work, want to crush everybody, like that's probably going to affect your sleep. So you're not going to sleep
Yeah.
well, so you're not going to rank well, but also your recovery as well. Like the downtime in between the strain and your sleep is very
Right.
important. So I love the harmony that Whoop kind of brings in to being a well-rounded, healthy, competitive human being. Because if I don't sleep well, I'm not going to rank well. If I don't sleep well, my strain is going to take a hit. My recovery is going to take a hit, right? But also, if I'm not stressing myself with strain enough, my sleep won't be as well. And this, so anyway, that's a great example of healthy competition. And I really wish, I'll plug it again, and we'll find a way. I think it's on our LinkedIn, and I'll find a way that you can join our group if you're part of the Whoop community. It's like actually some of the most fun I'm having right now. But also on the back end, we have a chat room that we're actually helping each other. Like, hey, John, I remember I saw it last week. Hey, John, I could see your heart rate was way up and this and that.
Yeah.
So we're actually in a mature way, really helping to support each other and get each other's back by literally being connected by technology that is monitoring our health 24/7. So it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy the Whoop and what it's doing for me and what it's doing for our group. And I really open it up to more of our mindfulness, Men Talking Mindfulness community, because like I said, it's a real true inspiration for me to find ways to continually be more healthy. And if I'm healthier, then I'm more focused. And then I naturally have that competitive edge if I want to use it. So
that's right. Now we come back. We've made it all the way back to the conversation at hand.
Hey, here we go.
Yeah, we did it. So so let's see. Our executive assistant put in the chat, hey, we need to get paid for this ASAP because we did such an amazing plug for Whoop. It was
I love the Whoop, man.
Somewhat off, but hey, we're supportive of it. So let's come back to the the contest culture, the negative sides of it.
Yes.
The bullying, the
go.
arrogance, right? So like what it does to individuals aside from the person who is displaying it, and then what it does to that particular individual. So, if somebody is displaying this contest culture, this masculine contest culture, they're making others feel smaller, feel less than. But what they're also doing to themselves is they're faking themselves out and making themselves feel more than, when really they're really not that great. So I'm sure everyone that listens, or most of the people that listen, are familiar with the co-working space or the former co-working space, WeWork.
Yeah.
I worked out of a WeWork for a while. It was an interesting and lively culture, and that the CEO, Adam Newman, was like this superhero. He was a unicorn. That WeWork was a unicorn among like the startups. Unicorn is a startup that is valued at over $1 billion, and at one point, WeWork was valued at $44 billion, and then almost overnight, WeWork tanked. WeWork tanked.
Yeah.
And there's a great documentary now, a show. My wife and I are watching this show called We Crashed, and it's really fascinating to see. It's a fascinating show, man. But it's really fascinating to see how he built himself up to be almost godlike, and initially people gravitated towards him, and then he got so arrogant that he started taking risks that were not going to have any type of return on investment. They weren't risks worth taking. They were just for his own arrogance. They weren't for any reason to actually grow the competition or grow the organization. It was strictly for competition and arrogance. And they ended up tanking because of it. And nobody had enough wasta or gumption to stand up to him.
Testicular fortitude.
Yeah.
If you will. Very true. I mean, I'm watching it right now, and you're just watching, the arrogance, to come back to, those 4 pillars. What do we say? It's, put work first. He was working all the time.
All the time.
Strength and stamina. He was working he would always say, I'm working 24/7. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. How much do I care? I mean, dog eat dog is an interesting one in that case, because I didn't see him he was trying to devour.
Oh, no, dude, absolutely. We saw it. Like there, the other
not within the company spaces. As much. I feel. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Within the company, maybe not, but against the other co-working spaces, again, there's healthy competition, but he wanted to crush the other competition rather than cooperating with the other co-working spaces. He demeaned them in the.
Oh, that's right. He bought them out or something like that.
Yeah. Well, he not only bought them out, but he literally demeaned them and made them feel less than. Again, so it was a dog eat dog.
That's true. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Like when they're sitting in his office, right, and he's not paying attention to what it is they're saying, and they're like, "Adam, we would like to talk to you." He's like, "I own 47% of the co-working spaces in this country. The rest of you guys don't own, as much as I do." And he made them feel less than. So again, it all comes down to, and this is tied to toxic masculinity, right? Toxic masculinity and masculinity contest culture. They're definitely very much intertwined. Masculinity in and of itself is not bad.
No, but it's part of nature.
Yeah, but when any type, whether it's femininity or masculinity, when they start demeaning others for how they are, that's when it becomes toxic. That's when it becomes painful. And again, this brings me to a point that I know we want to discuss, the two of us, is this masculinity contest culture. I have seen it I do some culture consulting, organizational culture consulting, and I have seen it among female exclusive organizations. And they're not female exclusive because, hey, it's just for females. It just happens to be the way that particular industry is. It's majority females. And there's been times when I've gone in and interviewed the women in these organizations, and they're like, well, it's just women being women. It's just women being catty. And what that leads to is, like, women, when another woman comes in, a new hire woman, they look down on her and they make her feel less than. And they tell me that it's like, it's a contest to see how quickly they can get that new woman to quit.
Yeah, or cry or something, right?
Cry.
I mean, for real.
And so that though it may be among women, it is still the masculinity
contest culture.
It's still the masculinity contest culture.
I mean, I you know what? In that same company, John, that I talked about earlier,
Yeah.
there's this one group that was all women. All women. There was like, and they're all in their same own building, which I thought was interesting. There's like 12 of them, and you can see the pecking order, right? And you can also see, I thought it was really interesting that I went over there and I cross trained. So not only did I cross train, because they were doing a cell culture, I was doing microbial, and they're very different. Like one's a eukaryotic cell, one's a microbe, and they behave very different in culture. They behave very different in the fermentation reactors, and they require a different set of skills in some ways. And I just wanted to learn something different. But also at the same time, I was kind of being trained, being a man, stepping into an all feminine space was really shocked at just some of the conversations they're having. And one of them was all about in this particular in this culture. And at that time, it was like there were some women that were married and some of them that weren't. And a lot of it was around their relationships and who's engaged, and not engaged, who's close to being engaged, what's the ring going to look like. And I was like, just shocked, that I'm like that it seems to me in that regard, it just seems so petty. And I was like, what, like, this is what we're talking about? Like, this is like what's important to all of you? So and honestly, Jon, I don't know where that comes from. But what my feeling is this comes from the very heavily masculine and male dominated way that we've been doing things for the last several thousand years. So I feel like a lot of women have been pulled into this masculinity contest culture just by being just by rubbing elbows, right? And continue and living in organizations that have typically, this article was written in 2019, so this isn't something that was written 20 years ago. This is still very prevalent today.
Yeah.
That women that are working and being influenced, and they're definitely, men and women both have feminine and masculine energies for sure. But it seems like the masculine energy, which, Lindsay wrote here when I talked about the sperm, she wrote all wars have been started by men, and even whereas the feminine nature it's been shown as different. It's more everything that I've learned, because my second yoga training, Jon, that I did in 2012 was with a woman. And the reason I was gravitated towards this woman is because she was doing a divine feminine yoga program. Mm-hmm. And, I just said that in my mind, I'm thinking like, oh, everyone's going to think I'm weak. Everyone's going to think I'm this or that and the other thing. But I literally moved in that direction because I grew up a very hyper competitive athlete, crushed competition, exactly what we're kind of talking about here. Like I've always been, put me on the basketball court, like I could really be a fucking son of a bitch, I got to say. Like, because I'm like literally taking people out of their game, right? So I could dominate and crush them. But that's what competition is. And sometimes it might not be the best way to do things, but it was effective and we won, Right. And it might not have made the best friends in the basketball court sometimes, but, it is healthy competition. Like, look at, the MMA.
I want to, before you get into the healthy competition in sports, I want to come back to what you just talked about with the women in that one building that were kind of off by themselves, and how there was still a contest culture there, and you feel that comes from them rubbing elbows with men, and they kind of see that and they emulate it. If I understand what you were saying,
yes, exactly, yes.
And I think this is where we disagree. We may actually have our first on the air disagreement.
Well, bring it, Jon. I'm going to crush you, Jon.
I'm so going to crush you, bro. So I think, it's not them rubbing elbows with men. It is what you just said. It's the masculine energy of wanting to be better than others. And that masculine energy, like you said, can be in men, and it can be in women. The masculine energy is in all of us. So is the feminine energy. And we can tap into both of those for good, and we can tap into both of those for bad. And I think
Right.
where the contest culture comes in, where we're demeaning others, where we're having to prove that we are better, we're having to socially validate ourselves over and over. That's the masculine contest culture coming into play, and the toxic side of it specifically. And it's not necessarily because of men, but it is definitely because of the masculine side of things. And here, are having a disagreement, if you will. I think it's important to understand that people can disagree and not despise one another, not hate, not become enemies. And that's another place where contest culture comes in. As soon as someone disagrees with you as a masculine energy, you feel offended, and you feel that you have to defend yourself or crush them. That's why there's so much crap on social media. Like, if somebody disagrees with you on social media, suddenly there's an all-out war on social media. That's why there's so much crap in any place where there's a disagreement, is that contest culture of having to be better, of having to be right.
No shit. That's another big one, John. It's like unwilling. Well, two other things I'll mention. It might not, and I think they even talked about in the article, but it's definitely part of this culture. Is unwillingness to apologize, right?
Yep.
And the other one that I just missed. Unwilling to admit that you're wrong, right? Which is like, it comes back to that psychological safety aspect, which is a big part of this. You know, and another thing I thought in this article, and anyone else listening out there, or everyone that's listening to this, it's like, without psychological safety, meaning you have trust within the organization to take risk, it devastates innovation.
Yes.
Devastates the opportunity to do new things, to try new things, right? Whereas, think about it, is it called a corporation, which requires cooperation, which requires collaboration, which requires at least a mindset of openness, psychological safety, listening to one another, being patient, apologizing, admitting when you're wrong. They talk about this article. One of the ways that men, masculinity and masculinity culture express themselves is taking stupid ass risks. Coming back to Adam Newman, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like, I don't care what it takes. I don't care if you double the price, double the square footage, double the lease. I don't care what it is. I just want to be the biggest. I want to be the best. I want to crush competition. And honestly, a new word I learned today, John, was vainglorious.
Oh, wow.
Reading this article. Vainglorious, which means, and also being super prideful. So everybody's looking at you as the superior. Everyone's looking at you as the alpha, right? Vainglorious, right? And a lot of this comes back, to that need to be seen as the highest. And what I will also say, John, I don't necessarily disagree with you about this feminine, masculine aspects and energy we talked about, because during this divine feminine training I did, the woman I worked with, who led the training, she was wonderful at this, breaking it down, was the way the energy of the masculine energy are how they're expressed. Masculinity is very linear in nature, right? Very linear. And that's why we have like a pecking order. That's why we have a hierarchy. And that's why I feel why we continually play this game of masculine contest culture, because we're trying to one up each other, and be the top of the heat and be seen and experience, right? Or that vainglorious, right? Or uber prideful. Whereas feminine energy is circular, right? So this is where, more like bring people together, build the home, right? Like make the nest, right? Whereas the man is out there typically trying to, provide for the family. And this is, I feel like I'm getting into some wonky waters right now, but this is like, this is the way it's been explained to me. But this is also the way that this is also expressed just biologically in a lot of ways. Like this linearity in masculinity, right? And this circular nature within the feminine. And what I was trying to do, John, and why I went in this divine feminine way is because like I wanted to get deeper into that divine feminine quality so that I can be more of just a whole, get the fuck out of this game, right? It doesn't serve me at all, right? And find a way to be a better man holistically, have a whole self of like, and I think that's one of the reasons why we work so well together, as well as like because I literally have worked in order to be more patient, to listen, to step back, to admit that I'm wrong, to apologize when I need to, because I have no problem doing those things because it just creates an environment and around me and the people I'm relating to that it's like that it adds that psychological safety. People are willing to be open and talk to me. And what happens in those cases, John, when you have that environment, that's when innovation occurs. That's when the biggest creativity occurs. That's when we're able to really accomplish things together, right? Because like a man is not an island, or a human being is not an island. It takes we were able to build this incredible fucking world that we have by working together.
Yeah.
Because if it's just one man trying to build the Empire State Building, it's not going to work.
Right.
You know, or whatever they're trying to build. But yeah.
And I gotta,
so,
I think, sorry, I just had to interrupt before I lost this thought.
No, go for it.
I know that
No,
goes against everything that we talked about in the Leadership by Listening episode. But
yeah,
you talked about, the trouble in saying I'm sorry. And in Daniel Coyle's book, The Culture Code, he talks about the importance of psychological safety, of belonging to an organization, and seeing a future for yourself in that organization. If you can have those three things, you're going to feel a part of the family, and the organizational culture is you're going to go far. But a lot of it starts with people being able to say, I am sorry. And he talks about the SEAL teams again in this book. And he talks about one of the big things that we do say to one another. And it's 3 words: I screwed up. And being able to say that builds trust. It builds that psychological safety, and it builds a sense of belonging, which ultimately grows the team, grows what it is we're wanting to do together. But it also, saying sorry, admitting that you fucked up, I think that is one of the hardest things to do, and one of the things that takes the most courage to do. So because it takes the most courage, because it shows vulnerability, honestly, I think it's one of the more masculine things, ironically, you can do.
Yeah.
And we, for some reason, do not celebrate that. When somebody says, I'm sorry, I was told, this is ridiculous, especially since I just said that in the SEAL teams, we say I screwed up. There is room for error. I was told in BUDS, that's SEAL training. I had an instructor pull me aside because I had said sorry in front of him I had said sorry to one of my guys in front of him. And he said, sir, never, ever apologize to your men. And I heard that, and I was like, I didn't say anything because I was a student. He was an instructor, and you kind of hold the instructors up here, and you're a student down here. Right. But in my mind, I was thinking, that's fucking ridiculous. Why would you not apologize to your people? Why would you not apologize to your men?
Right. Well,
and he had it in his mind that saying sorry was the weakest thing you could do. But that all said, man, I know you have something from Leviathan with Thomas Hobbes that you wanted to bring in.
Oh, yeah, good. I'm glad you're going to let me read this.
So let's talk about it. We're not going to get to everything in this show. We're not. No. But a multi-part episode or multi-part.
Well, I feel we just opened. We're opening. Sorry, John. We're opening Pandora's box here.
For sure.
We can just unpack this, and like I said earlier when we started the show, we're going to bring these conversations and grow this conversation in our Masculinity 2.0. And what we're trying to do in Masculinity 2.0 is upgrade masculinity, right? So we have, with healthy competition, being willingness to say we're wrong, apologize, all those wonderful things. But here's a reading by this was actually, they talked actually at the very top of the article The New York Times says a New York Times investigation describes Uber, right, which is a company, right, as a Hobbesian environment in which workers are pitted against one another and where a blind eye is turned to infractions from top performers. Okay. So I was like, what the hell is this Hobbesian, environment? So I started going down some rabbit holes, and I locked on to this. This is an article by Richard Tuck. I'm just going to read a little piece of it. And the title is Hobbes, a very short introduction. This is from Oxford in 2002, right? And what Thomas Hobbes, okay? What Thomas Hobbes, he wrote a book called Leviathan back in 1651, which also influenced John Locke, right? And John Locke influenced the Declaration of Independence, John, in this country. So think about, so anyway, just give a little backstory. It says, and one thing that in Leviathan that Hobbes talks about is the state of nature. Okay, Hobbes develops his account of the state of nature from the claim that human beings are naturally equal. By this, he means that each individual possesses the natural right to preserve himself, and furthermore, the natural right to claim all things or seek all power that he judges necessary to his ends. Necessary to this ends. According to Hobbes, this rough equality of ability leads each person to have an equal hope for acquiring good things for himself or their self. As individuals strive to accumulate goods, they compete with each other and consequently create an atmosphere of distrust. The attempt to acquire things and preserve them from the encroachment of others causes us to try to dominate and control those around us. Furthermore, Hobbes observes some people care particularly to be known as that sort who can dominate. They are vainglorious and proudful individuals who are unhappy if they are not recognized as superior. Last thing I'll read. These three things, competition, distrust, and desire for glory, throw mankind into a state of war, which for Hobbes, the natural condition for human life, the situation that exists whenever natural passions are unrestrained. This state of war should be distinguished from wars as we usually experience them, for in the natural state of war, every individual faces every other individual as an enemy. It is the war of every man against every man. The total absence of collaboration makes us miserable and renders life solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Boom.
Boom. How
There's
can we end the show on anything else other than that, man?
Yeah. I really, one thing I'll say, John, before we close, I was like reading this, and it sounds like there's a lot of paradox and a lot of like contradiction here in Hobbes' work, because he also does talk about from the stuff that I read just on this particular article by Tuck, that there is also that other side of competition, and instead there's like a harmony, which I was like, wait. So I reached out to Clark, who is like the professor at Pittsburgh, who's been on a couple episodes, and I was like, hey man, can you help me understand this? Or I just felt like I was like putting myself back into a classroom and wanted to ask a million questions, because this really lit me up, and this conversation has really lit me up today, John. And thank you for having such a wonderful, healthy Pandora box opening conversation.
We just cracked it. We just cracked it so far.
We just cracked it, but a lot of shit came out. A lot of stuff is flying out of here.
Pandora's box, man. Once you crack it, you can't close it.
And I'll tell you what, anybody out there listening and you want to please like comment on, send us a message. We'll be posting on our LinkedIn and Instagram. And if this has lit you up and you want to comment and help us further this discussion with some of the things that you're interested in, please send us a message. I think Lindsay talked about opening up potentially a dialogue box on mentalkingmindfulness.com where you can put some comments and reference things if you need to. But John, Always great to talk to you. I'm so glad that we have such a healthy environment at Men Talking Mindfulness, and this includes Lindsay and our other people that we work with as well. We're healthily trying to compete to definitely be the top mindfulness podcast out. And if we don't get there, I really don't give a fuck.
We're gonna crush
I really
the other
enjoy
ones.
it. Yeah, we're gonna crush them. I love what we're doing, Jon, and I think that love and that passion and desire to help other people will eventually take us to the top, whatever that looks like.
Right.
So there's my little end rant.
Healthy competition,
if you will, Jon.
healthy competition, man. Well, why don't you bring us home,
exactly.
man, with that closing practice?
Okay, great, awesome. Whoa, everybody good. Let's just close the eyes if you can. Let's just do a few simple breaths and just really bring ourselves home into our body, which is where so much of this truth, so much of this healthy competition, so much of who we can be rests. But the only way to get inside is starting to breathe and bring yourself home to your body. And sometimes you just need to get out of your mind in order to do that. And the breath is that healthy way to get into your body and come back home. Let's exhale the breath out the mouth. Let's take a beautiful, smooth inhale through the nose, really big through the nose, big breath in. Just hold that breath at the top here for 5, 4, feel that balloon in your torso, and a nice relaxing sigh out. Let's just do a few more of those. Big, giant breath in. Keep going, inhale. Hold that breath here again for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale out. Very nice. We'll just do a couple more. Inhaling. Holding 5. Exhaling smooth, let it all out. One more. Inhale, 5. Holding. Exhaling easy. All right, beautiful. Let me bring some of those micro movements in and open those eyes. Come back to the world. Jon, I could not be happier right now. Thank you so much, Jon, for this time
Right on,
and for your ears and your heart and your passion for the show and for everything that we're building, creating together. So thank you.
I agree 100%, man. I agree 100%. Though I am a better man than you, just so you know.
Oh, just today, Jon. Just today. I'll beat your ass tomorrow. I'll check you out in the Whoop. Watch, I'm going to sleep better than you tonight, Jon.
I'm going to crush you on the Whoop ratings.
I'm going to kick your ass into sleep, Jon. Right?
I love it. I love it. Hey, thanks for joining us, everyone. Will, as always, such a pleasure, brother. Love you, and I love what we're doing together. I love you, our audience, for your support and your listenership and your viewership. Please help us to grow the show because, hey, yes, we do enjoy seeing our ratings grow, but we also like to know that this message, the message that we're spreading, is getting out there. The message that we are putting out there is spreading, I guess is a better way to say it. And so please share this show with your friends, your family. Give us the thumbs up on YouTube. Subscribe there. Give us the ratings, everything else. We appreciate you. So that's that. And until next time, take care.
Peace. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jon.
Thanks for joining Will and Jon on Men Talking Mindfulness. If you enjoyed the show, please like and share it with your friends and family, and please, we would appreciate a review too. Until next time, this has been Men Talking Mindfulness. Thanks for showing up.